Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. The Barant Imperium presents itself as this impossibly menacing force, with advanced weapons and massive vessels worthy of anything calling itself an empire. The Dredgens that lead them are even more terrifying, with the powers of Six and Taken energy making them into even more vicious leaders. And those leaders have often claimed weapons of sorrow to empower themselves even further. You'd be forgiven for interpreting the Imperium as a pretty menacing force at first. However, any degree of close inspection within their ranks will quickly show you that the Dredgens and the Barant Imperium are not as united a force as they might first appear. Today we're going to delve into that and talk about how inevitably, at some point in the future, they're going to break apart. This is a schism that we could predict all on our own, but it's a schism which even Dredgen Bale has already been preparing for. So, to start off on all of this, we should clear something up. Dredgens are actually high up within the leadership structure of the Barant Imperium. Premier Loom might be the top dog of the Barant forces there, and he may be intent on retaking Torobatl, but right now he answers to Dredgen Bale. To be clear, this didn't start with some kind of grudging and uneasy alliance either. At first, back when they knew each other in the Last City, Premier Loom, aka Brachus Loom at the time, and Dredgen Bale, who previously was known as Nizer Buzet, they didn't have an adversarial relationship at all. They were friends, comrades even. Take a listen to this. This is an excerpt from Dredgen Bale's logs. It's the Sintering Lawbook, and it's from his early days as someone who lived in the Last City. The Cabal marched into Empire not just because of their legions, but also thanks to their armies of quartermasters, logisticians, factory masters, armorers, and so on. Their soldiers brought the stars to heel, yes, but only because of that greater force that kept them fed, fueled, and stocked with ordnance. One would think the soldiers of the Cabal to be arrogant, but in this twilight age of their state, I've found that the haughtiest and most entitled of the Cabal are the bureaucrats. They stand in the way of progress, clutching their columns, tables, and limits like a border guard and his rifle. When I want to give soldiers what they ask for, some quartermaster lumbers over to tell me that I must not, for it would be too expensive. Small minds who don't dream, but who think in terms of cost, capital, and limits. Discard your limits, factory masters and accountants. Follow your heart. Father, when I can get him to emerge from his tinkerer's shed, only mutters about how we must cling to Tex Mechanica's brand of old-world class and style. Father's a sentimental dope, and I'm sick of having to wait for his nod of approval. In the old world, people killed each other with less. They threw rocks. They fought with sticks. It's time for us to make something new. Until I run Tex Mechanica, I will push the firm into the future despite him. I will follow the voices of soldiers and those who dare. That is how one keeps reverence for what came before, by responding to the will of the masses, who compose the very institutions these moribund leaders claim to represent. Father eventually will understand. He must. Until then, I find camaraderie in the field. Brachus Loom, my liaison and the commander of the test unit that fields my weapons, understands and agrees. We have spent long hours together discussing many things. He serves as a muse to me, a rogue in uniform. He respects Keitel as a soldier must submit to their commander, but through his words, I can pick out the shape of his true intentions. He paints inspiring images of the Cabal before Callus, when they, as Loom so poetically put it, made an empire in tribute to the sun. Brave Brachus Loom has dreams like me. Dreams of liberation, of arousing history and leading it forward. Torobatl, their empire. I am moved by his vision. How similar it is to my own. What weapon would we need to build to realize the aspirations of dreamers like Loom? That is what I ask of my designers and engineers. Imagine a weapon to be carried into the breach and beyond. A tool as mighty as the ones who wield it. Make Loom a weapon that he is proud to carry, and let me be the vessel through which it is delivered. Of course, there is marketing in this thought, but I don't think of my ask as something that base. We make weapons, not sugary drinks. We give power a body, milling it from inert metal into an implement that shakes the columns of reality itself. The bark of our beasts makes kings and tyrants just as mortal as the lowest of us. I want Tex Mechanica stamped on the side of the Liberator's gun. I want us to be the engine of history. So we begin with Loom. I will continue to tilt at those bureaucratic windmills, but I think now at least I do it with a steadfast squire as company. Together, we'll score a victory over that class of manicured desk-bound elites. They might think they can control the world with the stroke of a pen, a perfected spreadsheet, or the tweak of an allowance, but we'll show them that people with dreams should be the ones to make decisions. People united, individuals of supreme motivation, who wrest the tiller of history away from those who would prefer to crouch on their piles of glimmer instead. It is time for dreamers to lead in a direction of their choosing. This unity of purpose is something that would carry through into even after the moments when Premier Loom was wounded. And when the two of them did eventually leave the city, it was something which brought them closer together in the end. They were steadfast. Truly, you could count them as allies. But I think when interacting with Six, something changed in Dredgen Bale, and his descent into truly becoming a Dredgen changed him further. The unity would start showing some pretty significant cracks over time, and this wasn't just in the relationship between Bale and Loom, although it certainly did appear, but between the Dredgens at large and the whole of the Barrent Imperium and its various forces. In this day and age, some of those cracks have even become fairly obvious. Here are a few examples of moments where the Imperium and the Dredgens have been at odds. Firstly, we have this exchange between Loom and Bale, which shows us that the two personally are now not necessarily seeing eye to eye on everything.
I've heard nothing of your progress lately, Lord Bale. Why would I waste time on progress updates instead of getting the task at hand finished? I hadn't realized communication with me was so useless to you. Watch that tone. You will hear from me what I want you to.
Next, we have a little more of the same. Recovered logs from the Imperial vessel that was being commanded by Dredgen Harrow and was set to rendezvous with the Malphas Contemptus.
Have you talked to your students? They're a ruin on staffing. Don't bother me with staffing. I'm researching legends and mysteries hidden from the city's archives. Another fool's errand. We have legends enough. We need soldiers. Maybe. Or maybe there's something to old stories. The Sage of Daini, the King of Chicago, Talon's Grove. There's more potential in these texts than in another revision of your staffing plan.
And this isn't the only evidence which was recovered from Equilibrium, given that later we see Loom reaching out to a former Brachus known as Brachus Iskoth, who we get confirmation of as being Dredgen Harrow. We can see through Harrow the more exacting idea of what this schism is causing. In short, it's attrition, and Bale is now creating odds that Loom hasn't necessarily factored into all of his calculations. Brachus Iskoth gets a stern word about it here.
Loom to Brachus Iskoth, or whatever you're calling yourself these days. Dredgen, or not. You owe your allegiance to the Imperium and your duty to your comrades in arms. Remember, you are a son of Tarabattle. Rein in your casualty numbers, or you'll see there's something more to fear than your Dredgen Master's unearthly powers.
These moments are all decent demonstrations of how the Barant Imperium under Lume and the Dredgens under Bale are starting to see their differences driving a wedge between them. But for my money, these are all just circumstantial difficulties arising in the wake of their defeat and the destruction of Nightfall Station, and the inevitable teething issues that have come about from the Imperium taking on a group as violent as the Dredgens as a part of their leadership structure. This is something that can be adjusted to in time, especially considering that most Barant soldiers used by the Imperium are clones. For me though, the real proof of any coming schism needs to arrive from within. It needs to be something stated by one of the Barant Imperium's leaders. And it just so happens that we have exactly that proof. Bale's recovered logs in the later entries in Sintering all but spell out the idea that the Barant Imperium is not a group that'll last. Take a listen to this. Division is the universe's force for creation. Reality is ripe with possibility when things spiral and fly and crash into each other. When the outcome becomes predictable, something happens. Possibility emerges. I can grab onto possibility, widen the gyre that deafens the falcon, and spin the center apart, as they say. All coalitions not grown from the inside out, but made instead by bringing outsiders together, have cracks through them. Foundational kintsugi can be exploited. A union made from gold is just nice to look at. Nothing is stronger than a monocoque, the single piece. This is Lume's Imperium. For all the great gifts of flat time that Six has given us, the Imperium has not resolved the tension that animates its core. Lume has enjoyed decades in a moment, using Six's grace to propagate and train vast legions of Barant soldiers and weapons to capture and recondition generations of scions. But for all that effort, the Imperium still lacks the summative soul of a nation. Tora Bartle is still beyond his efforts. All he has built is a self-contradictory revanchist movement stitched together by grievances, garbed to look like an army. Shared hostility makes tight bonds, but the main partners, Barant, Scion, are still enemies. The would-be master and the defiant servant cinched together for millennia, bonds broken for centuries. They haven't shaken the pain. The soul remembers the imprint of the bindings. These tidy categories both hate Keitel, but they hate her for different reasons. Those reasons aren't germane here. What I can use is this. Barant and Scion have come to despise each other. The Barant see themselves as superior to the Scions. The Scions have never been free enough to consider themselves supreme. Lume will lose control of his coalition, despite the powers afforded to him by our patron Six. Lume's nascent state is fraying not from the edges but from the center, the point of the stitch, where the binding is meant to be strongest. The Imperium will fail. I can see it in my dreams. I can read what trembles the fibers of reality. But until the Imperium collapses, I will use it to further my ultimate goals. Defeat the Vanguard, break their tyranny. I'll reach into the seams of his Imperium, tug the right threads, spiral them apart in a way that I can predict, stoke the fires to burn in a controlled manner, prescribe the burn, and then search the violence for promising candidates necessary to complete my work. The Scions will be my first attempt, the fruit plucked from Division's harvest. Cabal, Barant especially, live long lives. Lume's project will fail, but he will endure. That is the Cabal nature, anyway. To endure, even if he must use the last of his pliable muscles to drag his ossified corpse to Tora Bartle's shore, he will see it done, and I will be there with him. He has the last of my admiration, Let this effort of mine be a test of his mettle, a lesson in pain that will prompt him to grow stronger. This is the lesson that Six confirmed for me. Growth and knowledge can only come from pain. Ancient cultures practiced scarification. I do the same. Six, are you listening to me? Witness this vessel. I await your response. I think Bale here has accurately diagnosed what the problem is at the heart of the Barant Imperium, and it's that the Barant themselves and the Scions beneath them are not truly a unified force. Particularly when one looks at the actions of the Totality Division and their leader, Enforcer Rao, this just becomes even more obvious. The Scions are trying to get their own out. They're trying to prevent them from falling into the clutches of the Dredgens. They're trying to ensure that they don't stand under the tyranny of the Barant, and they're trying to destabilize Loom's operations wherever possible. The Coalition is already falling apart, and Bale can see it. He can see also that his own Dredgens will only add more fuel to that fire, so he's intending to use them as a way of siphoning the Barant Imperium for what power he can muster from them. He intends to take as many of them as he can and turn them into Dredgens, to give their power to him and to take it away from Loom. He may be friends with Loom. He may still have some loyalty to them, but two things here seemingly can be true at once. Loom is still his friend, but Loom is also a tool, and Loom will be used until there is nothing left for him to do. I think both forces will inevitably persist in some fashion for quite some time. Even after they inevitably find their differences to be intolerable, this might not necessarily precipitate a split right away. But when they do finally fall apart, the two will go on, and they will be weakened even further. Together, they had the chance of being a juggernaut of power within Sol and beyond. But Bale made the correct assertion. Their coalition was doomed from the start, and there is not someone at the very heart of it all that has the strength of ideology and the strength of will to hold them all together. However, until such a time, even if they do split, they are still dangerous, but they might not be as far-reaching as they could have been before. And in that, we can take at least a little confidence. That's all from me for now though. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like and leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. If you want more content, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.